Okay.
right?
Yeah.
I know it's a lateral move, but still last year, let's see. Where's the safety service?
Last year was 59,605.
Safety service director, yeah.
And this year's 61,393.
I don't know, somebody questioned it, and was wondering about it. Police, you see the police chief
Oh, yeah.
went up to 62 from 56,
Yeah, that's right.
okay? And the fire chief went from
54 to 60.
54 to 60. So,
And actually went to my bitching about the raise he's getting.
well, there's still only 2,000 difference, same from last year.
See, that's the point he was making to me.
This is budget.
That, and also this too. I said this. If you look at it this way, he's comparing apples with apples in whatever departments, and I know that he's got a lot more work than what.
Well, that's what I remember.
He's getting the police department. He's getting the secretary.
Right.
Mike Bennett, he does everything himself.
Yeah.
So I just understand. Got no secretary, he does
So-
job, chief and secretary prepare salaries, what's the fair? Downstairs too.
Why can't she do 2 days, fresh one, and 3 at the same rate?
Secretary for the fire chief.
Sure.
Michelle's been taking care of the hooks on her license.
Oh, really?
Hey, everybody. For sure. Hey, Dallas.
Hey,
I think.
you can run.
I was supposed to give a bill out the door. The truck was on the info.
Was it
Nobody
May?
done it, she's been taking care of it.
Well, it's already 2 after 5.
Well, Lori and
Oh,
Jimmy.
it's gonna be.
Listen, what happened in here? We got food.
They had a tree board meeting or
Oh,
something.
great.
They had that
Thanks,
residence
tree
meeting.
board.
Oh, I missed that one too.
Thanks a lot, tree board.
Oh, that's the end of it. What's in it?
I don't know who actually purchased it. But there's coffee.
Oh, boy.
Plates.
Oh, yes, leave us the
Some
cold
basil.
stuff.
Yeah.
Leave us the cold stuff.
Did they-
Leave it right in front of
They
us.
just want us to clean it up, that's
Uh-huh. Tell them, listen, next time you use our office, you better leave the lion's share.
all. Yeah,
So anyways,
yeah, well, we'll have to talk about it.
yeah, I'll bring Ruben a couple of things up about it and we could go from there. Tell us, since you're on that.
What do we got? We got one.
I just wanted, Mike Admin just called me about a few things on the fire.
The formula thing.
That and then, you know, just a couple of things he's gonna get left out of his budget.
Okay.
16,000 below what he usually was.
Budgetarily.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're doing that because of the fire station took so much
Actually,
extra
don't mind
money.
enough too.
I mean, you gotta be honest, they've got fire station and then we had to spend, what
What's
was
the
it?
bigger fire?
No, fire truck, 9th man. They did get their 9th man. And also, I mean, just being honest, we had to spend out of pocket on that fire station because it was under, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what we appropriated?
It's
It was like
almost 500,000,
I
right?
thought
Yeah.
it was 300 and some, right?
No,
It was
more
3.
than that.
It was 3, and then they asked for
Or
additional or
mezzanine,
something.
I
Yeah.
thought they needed or something like that. So we already took 500,000 towards that. I'm not saying we don't need it,
Yeah.
I'm saying is this the year to get it?
I started the live feed. Do you guys want to start? I mean, it's 35 after. But I don't even know if you guys can.
We can't without,
Like
No,
that.
we don't have, well, no, this is just a, this is.
Budget
is-
workshop,
Yeah,
so
this is a workshop.
okay.
Like you said, he
I'm gonna go ahead and start this one.
He said it was 45,000, he said 49,000, and I proposed 40,000 this year.
All right.
But then, but.
You guys are live.
Well, what do you need to break
I figured with
down?
the-
Whatever you guys feel like
Line by
doing.
line?
I'm good with line by line. If you guys think that's what you wanna do,
Here's the thing, I just wanna mention one thing. This is a proposed budget,
sure.
so if we have some questions or discrepancies, this has to be passed tonight,
Yeah.
okay?
Right.
So if we have any proposed discrepancies or anything like that dealing with pay and pay raises, we can address those.
For sure.
When the ordinances come out.
Absolutely.
So we really don't have to waste a lot of time on that area there.
Wages,
I mean, we can-
Wages, no.
We can mention something, different things.
Because whatever she budgeted for those, that could all be moved.
Sure.
And amended later on,
Right.
Yeah.
is what she was saying.
Yes.
I don't think we need to waste a lot of time
Yeah, 'cause
arguing
we're-
about pay rate.
I
There's
put
one
some extra
thing
on the
I'm gonna be
table.
honest about though that I did see in here,
It's-
that I'm
Sorry.
really technically not that for, and it's the
Hopefully it works.
3% for elected officials.
That's the first time ever that.
Well, and I guess I'm more against it because like, listen, does it really show that good? We're taking, it's a small raise, but we're taking a raise. Wastewater treatment plant couldn't get anything.
Yeah.
Now, those don't go together.
Right,
They're an enterprise fund,
Right.
and we couldn't give them money if we
but it
wanted.
still doesn't look.
But it's still, it doesn't really sit that right with me.
Well,
Everybody down here, all of us, we have other jobs. This is a secondary thing that
I-
service the city we do.
Right.
Well,
So
when I
we
ran
don't-
for it, I knew what the rate was, and I.
And you're fine with it.
I don't
And
accept it.
I'm kind of the same way. So I'm gonna vote no either way because I'm not really that comfortable with it. And at the end of the day, I do this because I want to do it.
Yeah.
We all have other
I'm
jobs.
the same way.
We all have, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
These guys, this is Megan, everybody, this is
Put
their,
my
this is,
3% to the four-wheeler.
yeah,
Right.
this is their full-time job, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
That's your source of income. You need that. Inflation is crazy, and you need that. For us, this is a labor of love. You know what I mean? And I really don't feel comfortable taking it.
Yeah,
So if everybody's good with it, which
I'm comfortable.
I don't assume that anybody here is going to care. You know what I mean?
And just because it's what you said about inflation too, and Mike said something about
Yeah.
cut. He goes, I do buy things now, and they earn more money.
Yes.
You're paying things for more, you know?
100%.
So, I mean,
And again, whatever anybody would like, I just need you gotta give me a reason that you need it or that you could really utilize this tool. You know what I mean? If it's
What's 3% of
the budget.
our salary? I mean,
Yeah.
$250.
Yeah.
a year?
Yeah, I figured it might be
This
265.
is 85 and 3%. Yeah.
Yeah, $265. I just listen. If that's $265 for everybody,
$3,000 a year.
it's $3,000 a year. Put it towards something else, because we are general fund employees.
Put towards this and get
Right.
the rest of it.
You know.
There.
Yeah, matching funds for the,
I'm fine with that.
Did he tell you, ask you about the state?
No, somebody else had mentioned to me that they were looking at.
He makes a lot of good points of why he needs it too. I mean, like the new lot up there, instead of having a snow blower, screw having a snow blower and snow blowing that place. You know, get this thing and
This
put
is
a blade
a brand new one, or this is
on. Brand new one. You know, for the river too, if you go down there.
I would say, but what I would ask is, could we possibly get a used one?
well.
And get a deal on it, I don't
heard
know.
he was looking into a used one, but then they said, forget about that too.
Well, for me, I mean, 15,000 is a big expense, to be honest.
It is a big or not?
It kind of is,
Yeah.
especially on all the other stuff we have to buy,
Right.
all the other stuff that they needed over the last,
Yeah.
you know, and it's stuff they should have had. The ninth man, they should have had.
Right.
This is all stuff, but they've caught up now with a lot of that.
Then again.
Maybe if we could find a good one for, I don't know. I've never priced them, but.
Yeah.
You know, when he's looking at too, everybody else is getting the equipment.
Mhm.
Parks getting the equipment.
He's getting into fire station.
Yeah, that's a
But
big,
he's
big
getting
jump.
the fire stations from the people,
Sure, sure.
not us.
Right, but we still need to take that into consideration too. And I'm saying if there's a way, if there's a way, I'm fine with it. I just,
My sister's in it,
We are putting extra money towards it because of
Correct.
the inflation as well.
Well, I'm just.
well, again, like you said, you thought it was 500,000 we had to come out of pocket.
I
think it
thought
was-
close to it.
Okay, so I mean, that's quite
The
a
mayor
bit.
would try.
We have to be as fair as possible to
Sure.
everybody's needs.
Yeah.
I agree, they're a really important part of the city, you know what I mean? But if it's something that can wait, you know what, I agree with that, let's say, but the fire station ain't gonna be built for a year.
Right.
So that's something that could be on next year's budget, and we know we need it.
Yeah, 'cause
That's
we're-
kind
we're-
of,
we're-
the
where
river
we
isn't-
gonna put it?
well, not only that, the river, you said they need it for,
Maybe if something happened down there.
yeah, okay, but that's not really full bore yet, the dam removal isn't complete.
Right.
So again, this might be something that possibly we could put off till next year if we need to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because, what, they'll get the new fire truck this year?
I thought next year.
About
Next
2 years
year?
or so.
Yeah, I thought next year, because it takes time to build. You got a waste basket in there, babe? I don't think you would have handled this gum.
No, I don't, I was just.
I don't blame you.
There you go.
But I'm just trying to be as smart with our budget as we can.
Yeah.
And I don't like to pay today what we aren't gonna utilize fully utilize until next year. If we can wait till next year, wait.
I know
You know.
in the past, we tried to make the chiefs pay pretty equal.
Yes.
It's right now it's about $2,400 difference, no, about $2,000 difference.
Well, I brought the same thing up too about the increase on the police chief salary. I just feel like if everybody's getting 3%, everybody should get 3%, unless you're at a job that, like somebody like Joey, who, when we started that position, we needed to see how much money it would make.
Right,
We needed
right.
to get sustaining on its own. It is sustaining on its own, and it is making money. So I understand his raise, and he's probably gonna need another one if he's here in a few years and it's still running like it
Sure.
is. So that's a position that was new. We set the salary low to see what it would do, and it's going to need incremental raises to get up to where it should be. But the chief salaries, I kind of feel like if everybody's getting 3, then everybody should get 3.
What was the reasoning for his?
I questioned Kat on that, and she said that because I guess they're giving a new exam for captains, and the captains will be making more than the chief.
The captains will be making more than the chief then?
That's what Kat said. But my plan for this, if it's okay with everybody, is for the next 40 minutes or 30 minutes, we address all of our concerns together. If anybody had an issue with something, then we can call the mayor and the auditor in,
Sure.
present them to them, and let them explain, any differences. Does that work for you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Is there something beeping?
No, it's something on top of I hear it
You don't like
It's
that?
like whistling.
Yeah, it's mine.
Okay. I was
It
like,
gets,
is it
it
my
gets worse,
head?
it gets worse at times,
It's
you'll
like
see,
the
and then you'll hear
fire
the furnace
department
kick
doesn't
on,
have a
and it's like,
No.
it sounds like the building's gonna take on.
Police department does.
Police department has a lot more employees if you
Right.
really went down the payroll. And I remember when I came in and, I necessarily didn't want to give one a raise, if you remember, to street supervisor. Because I didn't feel like, he has 4 employees in a $400,000 budget where
Right.
the police chief got 20-some employees and almost $3 million of budget. He does have a heavy responsibility. There's a lot of moving parts to that. So I always thought that the chiefs, or the department heads all being in line wasn't really a justifiable thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Anybody say anything about the safety service director?
No.
Since he's
Newer.
been on the job for 3 months, he's getting a raise.
I was what I said.
At 3%, you're saying?
Well, I think his is.
Last year, it was 50.
Well, nobody should have got, anybody besides Joey and Roddy, I don't think asked for any more than 3%.
I think Roddy is, yeah.
Roddy asked in Joey's position, and I wholeheartedly believe in Joey's position, because again,
But
we,
he didn't get one
Joey got 4,000, I believe.
It's
4
$3,900
Yeah,
to
yeah.
pay
No,
for
he
his
said he wasn't getting
benefits.
one.
No, he's getting one because he wants, right now, that's what his benefits cost him out of pocket a year. He said he just wanted his benefits covered. They killed out of his check, you know what I mean? So if he got a raise that would basically work out his benefits, he was happy with it. I think it's 38 something actually.
Okay.
So, and I, 100%, like I
Was that brought
said,
up last?
yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
We started that position really low to see what it would generate and how it would go. We know how it's going, we know how it generated.
Alright, so
It's gonna have to be brought up. It's
he's getting it because he's not paying his insurance.
no, that's not correct.
He's paying it.
He's paying his insurance,
He's paying his insurance.
which everybody does, but
But his out-of-pocket expenses, like, what, 30-something?
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
$3,900 a year is what comes out of his
39.36.
check. Now, it does out of a lot of people's too, but again, Joey's position, we started bottom of the barrel. We started it very low for what he actually does and what it is for the city. And we said, we'll assess it and see how it's going, and we'll assess how much revenue he's bringing into the city. And his position is more than supporting itself, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
yeah.
So, with that being said, I think he does need to get brought up, and I think, again, 2 years from now or so, or 3 years from now, we gotta get that to a sustainable wage.
Yeah.
Bob's is 3%.
So
But that's standard through everybody.
Yeah.
It is, and that's why, I mean, to be honest with you, I could justify it either way.
Yeah,
We could say
right.
he's only been here a few months, and we could also say everybody's getting a 3% cost of living increase. How do you start saying, we're not giving it to this full-time employee, we're giving it to this, and we're not? So I could see it either way.
Sure.
To be honest, it's,
Well, like I
you know,
said,
I'd like to
this-
hear everybody else's opinion
I
on
see
it.
the same perspective too, but just like you said about all the budget he has and what budget that.
Well, I truly believe,
How
in
many
my,
people that,
in my opinion, the safety service director should be head and shoulders above
I
the
agree,
department.
or at
No,
least,
I agree.
He's their boss. I mean, you have a chain of command here, you have a chain of responsibility. Mr. Benson, now as the safety service director, is the second most powerful person in the city.
Yeah.
He's in charge of a lot of moving parts.
Sure.
City
Oh,
administrator.
So
absolutely.
I couldn't, in my opinion, I cannot see any department head making as
More
much
than
as him or more than him, exactly. I mean,
we discussed that years ago.
yes, we did. And I felt the same way then as I do now, no matter who's in that position.
So we need to bring
It's a
that up.
position
Well,
that
I think
warrants money.
the raise is towards the position and not the person.
Right. And I would agree with
Yeah.
that. I would agree with that.
But from what I heard, he's happy. Him and Mike.
I just can't see us structuring it that way from a business standpoint, which
Right.
is generally how I look
We
at
have to
this.
do it for a future.
I can't see us structuring it to have somebody underneath somebody making more money than them. But I guess the flip side to that is, as we're sitting here looking at it, if it's true that the captains are gonna be making more than the chief now,
When does that go into effect?
we'll be able to ask Kathy those questions when he comes in, or when she comes in, just make sure that we go over I think the chief's salary is something that, and again, we could change it, but that's a question that she'll be able to answer. She had her explanations for me. I didn't go over them and make sure that that is actually true, but she did say that that was the problem. The chiefs, or the captains are gonna be making more salary, or more than Roddy. Again, we'll have
Is
to
it
take,
because
we'll
the
have to encompass
captains
the
get
whole
paid
thing.
overtime and everything?
I don't think so.
No?
I think what she was saying was they have to give a new captain's test. And in order to do that, nobody's taking the test, they're gonna have to raise the wage, which, that's out of our hands, cause that's still collective bargaining. So
Mhm.
that doesn't deal with us.
Right.
So she might know a little bit more information of what the wage is going to, or what it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But her explanation to me was that the captains would then be making more than him, which isn't right either, you know what I mean? And we could sit here and say, oh, this isn't right or that isn't right, we still have to find a solution for it.
sure.
You know, it's easy to point it out, but
One thing that I wanted to ask you guys about, just because I don't have like a ton of experience looking at this, under
looks like
4,000.
you sure did your homework on
Boy,
it.
you better
Got
believe
something
I
written on
did.
every line, Meg.
I did.
Good for you.
Under park and playground, 4,000. There's no line number or line item for materials and supplies this year. And last year it was 2,600 for materials and supplies.
Let's head to
Last one.
miscellaneous.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna ask you.
It might, you know, Chrissy changes line items and things like that sometimes because that's the way they have to do it.
Under capital improvements.
Yeah, I would say it may be under capital improvements, it also may be under,
It could be under building somewhere.
yeah.
General.
Then what building?
We also gotta find out a little bit more information about the TIF program. I have some questions on that fund about when we relinquish money, what portion of it, we gotta try to keep, yeah, we really do. Cause to me, honestly, when we did it, I remember being in so much favor of, let that money ride, we let it ride for 10 years, there was like 300 grand in there or something to split between the city and between Castle. Hey Laura,
Hey, Lord.
remember your purple?
I did.
Would I let you borrow these?
What's the fifth?
Oh my gosh.
Like this, I see this is park meeting room, central roof rent, materials and supplies here.
Right.
But I did bring,
Is that
His
the
daughter.
same like you would get?
I would assume that she probably shifted it, put an X by it, and when Chrissy comes in, That seems like probably a real easy explanation, that it got shuffled for one reason or another.
What was that?
Materials and supplies for,
The park.
the park. The line number, or the line item is missing out of 4,000 this year. And then if you go to the back page, like the second or third to last page, there's park meeting room and then there's materials and supplies.
But, I mean, like, I combed through this, there's some things that jumped out at me, but not very many. I mean, to be honest, it's pretty straightforward budget. The ones that jumped out at me the most were the salaries that we, on a few of them, that we don't even address really.
Well,
So did you know that?
Salaries?
Salaries we do in salary ordinances in a couple weeks ago.
It's really not, I mean, you can mention them, but I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah. But again, we might
Go over to the
we might
ordinances,
get down to it,
Yeah.
Bob, and that might be our only real questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
you're right.
I'll be honest, most of it, it's pretty straightforward. I didn't find something that I was like, you know, really. But it's like this every year. You think you found something crazy, and then you ask, and there's a simple explanation that it got moved to this
So like, for
category.
instance, okay, materials and supplies, like Megan stayed the same as 2021.
Okay.
But yet CACs went up from 1,200 to 3,000. So like, is it just based on like what they want?
I asked her if she has some type of intention that they need. You know, maybe they need a copier, maybe they need,
Okay.
you know what I mean? When there's an inconsistency like that it went up 120%, definitely has.
Usually because they bought something.
Correct, or they have, they're gonna do something.
Usually- Do we buy these or do we lease these?
We lease them.
We lease them.
It's probably smarter. We'll have to service them then.
We got majority, but say, what time's Jim supposed to come?
5:30, I think you said.
Because, you don't want to run overboard.
No.
Usually it's be 2 hours.
Yeah, an hour and a half. But I
Well, we
mean,
went over a lot of it with Chrissy when she was here.
well, and again, they're gonna come back in too, so I just thought, if we all had, if you had a chance to go over it, Lori, and you had anything that stuck out to you, we could kind of go over it together now and then ask them to come in, and so if you had something that stuck out that you've seen, I mean, more of mine again were just a few of the wages. I said this when you guys weren't in here. I'm really not, the one thing I'm not in favor of is the elected official raise. I just feel like it's kind of poor taste on our part.
The 3%.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just 3%, and I don't speak for everybody, so anybody can vote and make their decision however they want.
Yeah.
But-
Who normally makes that decision?
Well, one year I think we got brought up $500. Do you remember that, Ricky?
From 8 to 85.
8 to 85. It might have been my first year here
Well, that actually just brought it back to where.
Right,
because it was taken down, right? So it got brought up to whole. But since then, I'm just like, you know what? Wastewater treatment plant couldn't get a raise this year. Now, or for 3 years basically.
Can we give her 3% to
We
the
can't.
wastewater?
And I thought the same
It's not
thing.
much money.
Well, no, but I thought the same thing. But the wastewater comes out of an enterprise fund.
They
The
do.
general
Yeah,
fund
yeah,
cannot
yeah,
put
yeah.
money in or take money out of
Right.
that enterprise fund. They're completely separate.
Yeah.
We couldn't give them money if we wanted.
Right.
And, or else I would say the same thing, you know, but it's not a possibility. But I still think it's kind of in poor taste.
I'm okay with that too. I'm fine.
This TIF, capital
Jimmy?
improvements.
Tap
Like that jacket, buddy. You look
Oh,
good.
thanks. It's my
What
Dr.
did she say
Evil
about
jacket.
that?
Mhm.
She said it's on this budget because we were able to use it this year.
I'm sorry.
That TIF capital.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss that too. That's gonna be a main
What page
talking
is that on?
point. The TIF program, I think it's on 3,
Four,
4.
very top.
And it's basically just saying what's in the fund right now. The TIF capital
Okay.
improvement fund is 56,000, which, to be honest, I thought would have been more than that by now. But I know that, I wanna find some things out because we're supposed to share this with Casla.
Now, is this our share? Or is it
That's
what we-
exactly what I wanna find out.
Yeah.
Is this our half, or do we get half of this half?
Yeah.
And there's gotta be some type of guideline or regulation on if we can take this whenever we want, or if Caslo can take it. There's gotta be more structure to it than that, in my opinion. It can't just be like, well, this is a fund and we take the money out as we want. We're supposed to be splitting this with Caslo 50-50 to my knowledge. And when we put this in, Bob, do you remember us saying like, it accumulates over a
Well,
10-year period?
We had to use ours downtown.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. It had, well, the
Anywhere
reason
down.
we had to use it downtown though was,
Wasn't it a mile radius of Struthers?
it's because Aqua is in downtown.
Correct.
So it had to be within a radius of their building that we
Right.
TIF.
Right.
Now, Caslow basically brought this to us, and how they worked it out, Caslow got half and we got half. But I didn't, in my opinion, I thought this was gonna ride for 10 years. And then, you know.
I don't know if it was, if this particular, I think they said it could go that
Well,
long
10
if you
years
don't use it.
No, the 10 years is what we have. So this will, basically how it worked with the TIF was, prior to the county appropriating tax for that building, you can only do it when it's first built, a built property.
Right.
Prior to taxes being appropriated to the building, you could put it into a TIF. And the TIF is basically diverting it into a fund. So county isn't getting their tax and the schools aren't getting their tax. It's going into a fund that builds. And the city was able to do that
Right.
as a partner with Caslow, and so we're splitting that. But it will build for 10 years no matter what. If we took this out this year, next year it would grow in the same manner. What was supposed to be appropriated to my recollection on it, to taxes, goes into a TIF fund.
Right.
And that's how I remember it, but again, I was like, I thought I remembered them saying it was gonna be 300 or 350,000 over the 10 years would grow in this fund.
That was maybe the projection.
And I was excited for that
Yeah.
because I'm just like, well, just let it ride. Let's
Yeah.
not pick it away $10,000 at a time. Let's let that 150 or, you know, that's coming our way at the end of it really do something good.
So is our coronavirus relief fund replenished?
That you would have to ask the mayor because
I mean, old budget is 128,000.
we don't
It's not
control
on here.
that.
I don't think we have to do any more upgrades, do we, for the virus?
I wouldn't think so.
Never know. Said there's a new strand out. 60 times more communicable. Or, what did you say, transmittable?
Yeah,
Whatever. We'll go communicable.
Yeah,
I like
same
that
thing.
too.
yeah. Sounded good.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, what is my election expense for, by the way?
Which category are you in there?
9,000 miscellaneous.
Kinda like when we put that levy or the.
Yeah,
the
Fire levy.
Not
Oh,
the, that, and when we
Road
put
levy.
the road
the 4-year,
resurfacing.
2-year to 4-year
Yep.
thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you have to pay for those.
Yeah,
Put those
so
on.
any of those, like when we did the fire levy, I
Mhm.
think we had a golf outing maybe?
Yeah,
We had a golf
Okay.
outing. The money stays in that account, even if you don't use it.
right.
It stays in there and rolls over to your next levy. And to be honest, I don't think we can utilize it for anything else but that. That is a separate fund, so
I
it
agree.
stays in there until it's dead.
Right.
And then the consultant fees, is that like we're paying for?
Yeah. I would, any consulting that we use, which would be, like GPD did this study,
Mhm.
which wouldn't get paid out of that, it would get paid out of wastewater, but any study like that.
Is it, I don't know if that comes, that might come out of the law director's budget, but outside services from, like, if he can't do the.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
I don't know if he has something in there for that, operating.
It's not much.
Oh, yeah, professional outside
You know what,
services.
the only guy we're missing is Ronnie.
And he's sick, he's not coming.
I told him earlier I would call him when I was in here, and if he felt okay and had any questions for us to ask, I would do so. So I will call him on speaker.
For Mr. C.
They called me, I was on my lunch
He's
break.
chomping at the bit. He's, "Hey."
Megan, were you happy with your expenses, materials and supply amount?
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's fine.
You get by with that?
I get by, and if we need more, when she does the amended, she'll pull it from other categories, I
Okay.
mean, because there might be unforeseen circumstances that might happen.
Dog,
He did that on purpose.
how you feeling? You said, well, let me tell you, you sound terrible. You sound terrible, but I'm here with everybody going over the budget. Yeah. Do you have any questions you would like to relay or things you would like us to ask on your behalf?
Yeah, one thing I would like in that budget is, I don't think that,
You're talking about the wastewater rates, correct?
Huh?
Talking about the wastewater rates.
Yep.
Okay. What else you got for us? What?
And then the other thing that I was looking in the budget was all the department heads, you know, got the 3%. You know, I mean, in the police, the fire,
Yeah.
the street, and all that. But the fire, I mean, the police, I don't know if it was a misprint or what, because I looked from the last budget last year and matched it to this year, and the police got a bigger, you know, bigger increase.
Okay, so
than what it's supposed to be.
police chief salary. One thing we did say is, as far as it goes tonight, we're more going over the budget, not as much salaries, because we'll be able to define all of these in salary ordinances next week, or 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
So, you know, depending on time-wise, we'll go over the salaries. If not, we'll do the salaries in another 2 weeks. But what else, Ron? You got some other stuff?
Not really. I would like, you know, just like you said, we're gonna go over salaries in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, the salaries aren't in stone.
I think Joey deserves an increase too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not an increase.
All right.
He
What?
did get an increase
Yeah,
though, and that's what he asked for, in all fairness. Joey got an increase,
Yes.
what he asked for, we gave him, I believe that's good enough for
Yeah.
now, that's my, I mean,
Fair enough.
yeah.
What else you got, Ron? Anything?
What did they say that?
It said Joey got what he asked for. He asked for his benefits to be paid the same amount as his benefits cost him to be paid, and they gave him exactly that. And that's from your best best buddy Lori. I said, and that's from your best buddy Lori.
Okay. Whatever. I'd like to have them in there then.
Okay. Anything else?
Me.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. What? Anybody else? Or anything else that stuck out to you?
No, not really.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, listen. Get better, and I'll give you a call later on.
okay.
All right, buddy.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Okay.
Yeah, like, you probably, but this is basically about the overall proposed budget.
Mhm.
If you have complaints and arguments about certain salaries, this isn't the time to do it.
No.
Because we have ordinances coming out for each one of those salaries. And then
Even
we can-
part-time people?
And then we can argue about that, yes, even part-time.
Okay, yeah.
But we have, that's just ordinance of part-time, full-time.
So sometimes it's blanketed, correct, where
Right.
it's all part-time or all full-time, but yes, Jimmy, you could section that off any way you want.
Okay.
But again, tonight, honestly, we could call them in the few, and any questions that anybody had, we could ask the mayor and the auditor who made this budget, and they should have an answer for us on
I mean,
any
you
of
could
these
bring it up.
changes.
But I wouldn't spend a lot of time
Correct.
arguing over it because these numbers can all
Well,
change.
and also, we might go through this and have,
Part-timers.
All part-time, oh.
Jimmy, we might go through this and get through the meat of it in 5 minutes.
Mhm.
And we're able to ask about salaries if we have time for it. But just know that the salaries aren't, just because they're on here, they're not set in stone, because they have to be done under a separate ordinance.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
to pass the ordinance.
Yes. And I mean, honestly, it seems like a few of the real issues on here are questions that we have ourselves. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Do you guys want to have more to go over here? Or would you like to call the auditor and the mayor in and ask them?
I mean, they're pretty straightforward.
I
As far as
have
I'm
just
concerned.
mapped out what I needed answered for me. But it seems like that was the same question everybody else did, so, you know. If so, we'll call them in if you guys need some more time.
Oh, good.
I'm good.
Want me to go grab
Keep
them?
can we? Thank you so much.
I'll get it down.
What's that?
Did it go down?
What's that?
That table?
Part-timers? Oh, no, Bob was just, you know, he's like, they're only making,
I know she brought summer help up
Yeah,
No.
she did bring it up, so.
okay,
to $10, but I don't know about part-time.
yeah.
Part-time payroll for part-time playground was 21,000, last year was 23.
We might be short an employee as well, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Well,
So
he's
again-
just concerned about their hourly wage and that, you know, they can go get a job at wherever
I get it.
making more money.
But it's tough to go off that now because, I mean, look at, we just can't, I deal with this in my own business.
Yeah.
You know, Target, I seen someone was offering $20-some an hour. We can't even offer what Target can offer. I mean,
Oh,
I
goodness,
just
no,
can't,
no.
you know, we kinda gotta go off what we're able to do here,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, what do you think about Ronnie's idea about not no raises for us?
I agree.
I don't have a problem with that.
No, I brought that up, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
thought you were here.
Yeah.
It personally, for myself, it doesn't sit well with me that wastewater didn't get a raise. We're sitting here, this isn't a full-time job for any of us.
Right?
This is a labor of love.
Yeah.
We don't
But
need,
that's kinda how the $500 reduction kinda went down.
okay,
You know, one of the councilmen kinda announced on the floor that he was gonna take a cut, and then he kinda put it on the rest of the council.
okay.
And, you know, I guess the safe case, everybody.
Well,
agreed.
at the end of the day, when we ran, this is a good point Bob brought up, when we ran, we knew what we were making.
Hello.
Yeah. How are you?
Hey, guys.
I didn't even think about paper job when I ran.
Great.
So, you know, everybody's dressed up, Chrissy.
Try to run to the restroom.
To me, this was pretty straightforward, few questions on
Okay.
things. And some of them, aren't really even gonna get too far addressed tonight because I think a lot of ours that we have questions about were salaries, and we have salary ordinances
Right.
for that, so.
Okay.
Now, I'll say the first one, I thought with everybody getting a 3% raise, the only one that made sense to me to pull outside of that was the property code enforcement agent. And for that, it was because we started that position off bottom of the barrel, wanted to see what it would produce, what kind of revenue it would generate, and kind of adjust the wage to that. So I could see giving him, and I think honestly, a year or 2 years from now, we'll have to assess the budget, we'll probably have to do it again until that position is up to where it should be. The police chiefs was kind of, didn't really know what to make of it, just because at this point, that's gonna put him above safety service director, which I've advocated against other times in history here. I feel like a chain of command should be in order as far as pay structure versus chain of command in the city, you know. So that was one that I had questions on, and I know that you had some answers. I just thought maybe you could elaborate better than me.
Do you want me to do that now?
Go ahead.
Okay. So just to rebut one of the things with the pay scales across the board, Guy makes more than him too. So there are positions where he doesn't make more than the people he's in charge of. I spoke with Bob and he's completely comfortable with this raise. We talked to Roddy about it, so it's not anything that he hasn't had a say so in the matter too.
What did you have, you said that the captains would then be making more than the chief?
So that's, and I have a document I'd like to read, once we get there, but we are struggling in our police department to find people to fill vacancies. We had a test set, we actually had to cancel that test because we had 2 people take out applications and only 1 return them. Hubbard had the same problem, they were having their test the following week, they had 2, neither of them returned them. The problem on our end is there's a wage difference between some of the other departments, and everybody right now is struggling to find people. We did things like, we increased the maximum age, trying to get people that way. So we're trying to do as much as we can to bring people into the department, but one of the things is the starting wage. Talking with Chrissy, we're gonna be negotiating the contract for officers and for captains this year. And we are hoping to be able to go after somewhat of a healthy increase on their salaries. With that being said, as we increase those, that's just gonna make the captains that much closer to our chief. And it's gonna be hard to increase without that being
Well,
an
on most
issue.
fronts, a lot of our captains and patrolmen do make more than the chief because they're available for overtime, which he is not unless there's emergency.
Right.
So in a salary basis versus them working OT, the pay is usually pretty close.
Yes, and I believe the last couple years, I think last year he had nine of the officers make more than him.
Yeah.
Because of the overtime and the side
Right.
jobs and things. But just flat alone,
Right,
they would be right up, the captains would be right up there.
okay.
So, and if
Well,
I
again-
could, can I read this, that we talked with Chief. It says, I would like to address my current salary and the reasons which I believe I should receive an increase commiserate to the position of police chief for the city of Struthers. There are a number of factors in which I can attribute numbers to make this argument. These numbers include salaries of chiefs in similar sized departments in the area, the fact that during my tenure as police chief there have been small increases which include a span between 2011 and 2017 that he received that I received a total of one increase for a total of $500. Captains and patrolmen in the department have consistently received raises during the time that I have received minimal increases. The general gap between ranks in most departments locally, nationwide, is 10% between patrolman and the next rank, which is sergeant, lieutenant, or captain. 15% between ranks, and then 20% between the highest ranks in the department and the chief's position. Currently here, the increased gap between patrolman and captain's position is 11.1. The gap increase between captain and chief is 10.85%. Currently, a captain will surpass my weekly pay with 4 hours of overtime in a pay period. Patrolmen work 6 hours of overtime, surpass me. A recent check of cities with similar size and similar departments found that Girard pays a base pay to their chief of $72,000, Salem $74,000, and Hubbard $60,000. But there is a recommendation by their safety service director currently to move the chief's salary to $75,000 in 2022. The following is a breakdown of each year that I've been chief. I've also included the 6 years prior to my taking over the position. As you can see, in the 6 years prior to his retirement, Chief Norris received approximately $44,900 in increases. In the 11 years since I took over as chief, I have received nearly $5,100 in increases. I took the numbers from my record of payments per pay that I have computed over the years. The numbers may not be exact, but they represent the bi-weekly pay that I have recorded. And then there's a breakdown of over the years. I believe a good start would be to increase my hourly wage this year from $28.29 an hour to an even $30 per hour. It is a very minimal increase of $1.71, but it will raise me to over $60,000. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. So after receiving this, we sat down and we talked, and that's when we talked to Bob, and he basically said this would put him a little bit over what Bob is making. But he's been chief now for 12 years, and he's been with the department, with the city for 35. And we felt that a different raise for him was also warranted. He's also not just in charge of his department, but he's in charge of the entire dispatch department too. So there's two separate things that he's.
I guess my issue is, every time we give somebody a raise, even though they can explain that they're worth it, right? It might not happen this year and it might not happen in a few months, but next year, a year down the road, somebody's gonna use that raise and they're gonna say, Chief got a raise and all I got was a 3%. And it's a snowball effect. We've seen it substantially in the last 2 years. Does everybody else feel like we've seen that? This person got a raise and I do more than them. They're making more than me, then we gotta bring that person up and another person. And it's just a snowball effect. And that is why I advocated so much for basically getting the ones that were really underpaid to where they need to be and riding out a cost of living increase yearly. That was seemed like more of a feasible plan to me.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think, Bob?
Well, you know what, I'm a salary employee. I work a lot of overtime, don't get paid for it. But that's what I agreed to do. You know?
You knew what you were gonna make.
Sure. But, and, like, a lot, the patrolmen and captains are in the union, whereas the administrative part of it aren't in the union, and they know that going in as well. You know, I mean, they gotta hold to their own word as well. You know what I mean? It happens, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I mean, you can give them raises and stuff like that, but You gotta be fair about it.
I just feel like everybody can make an argument why they're worth
Sure.
more money, and that may be right. I'm not saying that they're wrong in saying that they're worth more money, but I think we also need to be as prudent as possible, and I feel like we're at a point where the fact that 3% raises for everybody, this was a high cost of living increase year, we had a lot of inflation. I think that's great, but I also like keeping it uniform across the board for everybody whose position is, let's just say maybe it's not exactly on par with other cities. We've always actually paid a little bit lower. I'll be the first to admit that. But you also have a lot of pros being here, you know what I mean? Everybody a lot of the people like the chief, he lives 2 minutes from work. That's a huge pro to me. You know, there's a lot of good things that come along with these jobs. I just feel like keeping it uniform across the board. I don't feel like he's drastically underpaid. May he be he's on par for as underpaid as anybody else is in the city. If you went to the fire chief, you could go to those cities and make the same argument that
Right.
he's underpaid.
And I
You
could probably
understand?
go down the list and show you how almost everybody is
I
underpaid.
agree. I agree.
But that's why we went through the budget meetings, we have the meetings beforehand and pose this to council. We're not asking to bring everybody up, but we are asking for this specific position because it's gonna have a ripple effect with the rest of the department and our safety forces in general. If we don't have people on,
Yeah, and honestly,
Sure.
if
But,
you don't pay,
I guess what I'm asking you is this, do you really, everybody's having a work shortage, right? I deal with it day in and day out. And I know that raising a couple dollars here and a couple dollars there doesn't make people want to work they don't come to work. If I said I was paying $15 an hour, I said I was paying 20, I'd have the same result.
Well, I think if you're looking at, you know, a police officer and do I want to work in Struthers or do I want to work over in another community where I'm making $2 or $3 an hour more, you know, comparable community, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna go work somewhere else. So
Sure.
I mean, I get the point. I think it's you know, valid that you know that in bringing his salary up is only makes sense so that you can bring up the salary for, you know, to make this more attractive to the police people that we're not being able to replace.
I also feel like that ripple effect we need to take into consideration that it is going to spiral out. So we are raising the patrolmen, we're raising the captains, we're raising the chief. It's not like, well, this is just going to be a small increase. And we also have to keep in mind, when we raise somebody's outside of that 3% realm, okay? We give you an extra $4,000, right? We're now paying 3%. Every year we increase that, whether it's 2%, 3%. There is a ripple effect down the line that now next year, your 3% raise has an additional, it's compounded.
Yeah.
And I really think that that's why I've always tried to stick to that actual percentage down the line, because then you don't get out of whack where we gave this guy 5%, now every time he gets a 3%, it's compounded that much more, and salaries start to run away on you. You know what I mean?
and
We
can I
haven't
ask
had
why
that.
that wasn't done last year? And why there were specific people who got significant and not?
Certain ones, we were way underpaid, and you guys brought that to us, and we granted that. We really thought, hey, since I've been here, some of these positions are
Like
crazy
God,
underpaid.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and then
Yeah.
when you brought that to us, we were the first ones to say, you know what, you're right, and we agreed 100%, and we agreed with Michelle, because even though she was here a short period of time, she took 2 other positions that we then didn't have to pay those positions. We were able to pay her. That's an easy justification. We understood all this, but I even made the point last year, and last year and the year before, that we need to address these positions and get them to where they should be. We're close to where they should be for our city on par. And then from then on, coast on a cost of living increase.
But I don't know that we
The
can
city
do
has to
that.
be financially able to do that, because we're not a growing city.
No,
We are not a growing city. And if anything, the older people get, the more we're gonna lose.
right.
And if we're able to catch some of these people up, even a couple this year, a couple next year, and bring them up, instead of, if we went through the budget right now and brought everybody up to where they should
Agreed.
be incomparable to other people, so.
But I didn't
it
think we
is-
were that drastically behind on all of these people. you know, you guys wanted to separate them from being secretaries and give everybody job titles. And we were fine with that, because even though they do a secretary's job, they also
No.
have other jobs and have different things to that. You have something, Chrissy?
Some of them don't do, that was just, some of them don't do secretary.
Well, I'm not saying they only do a secretary job, I'm saying that that is a facet of their job, but they also do a lot of other things.
Well, that's why it was brought to our attention.
Correct, and that's why we had no problem splitting them, you know what I mean? And appropriating pay in that manner and bringing them up. However, I thought the rest of these are pretty much on par with the city. Maybe they're a little underpaid, but everybody here is a little underpaid.
The
I
police
would
get
just-
raises through their
Contract, the
contract,
negotiations.
that's negotiation, so we really don't have any say-so
Correct.
on what they're getting. So we're in charge of the chief getting his raise.
Correct, you are.
And he really hasn't had much of a raise in 12 years.
No.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that
I mean,
he's a-
looking
he's
back
a great
on what he's-
employee,
right.
he's in the city all the time.
Right.
If
He
you wanna look
Sure.
at the
does
numbers.
things-
And I would
You know, I
add
mean-
this, when Tim Daly became the SSD, he did not get a raise. So if Tim had gotten a raise, and now Bob was getting a raise on Tim's raise,
It would be even
then
more.
he might be
Okay.
where he should be, above the police chief, but he's
Fair
not
enough.
because
Well, that's a fair
that raise didn't
that's a fair justification.
happen.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
I'm fine with that.
That's,
I mean, how much money are we, you know, outside of the three,
$1,765.
he's looking for a $1,765
$65.
raise on top of the 3%.
correct,
Yes.
Okay.
correct. But I mean, that is a good justification. I just, in my head, have a problem paying not in chain of command, you know? And I get it, you brought that up with Guy, but we wouldn't even be able to get anyone to do that position because it's so hard to come by a class 4 license. We dealt with that when we
Right,
hired Guy.
and when he retires, because he's in drop right now, we're not gonna get anybody that's gonna wanna sit for that because
I'm
they're
sure
gonna
one of
make
the-
more as a captain.
I'm sure one of the captains will.
I'm sure they
But
will,
again, just in general,
it's the same thing.
that's a good point, Chrissy, as far as where he should
But then
be
again,
based on that.
if somebody does apply for that job and get it, they
They
know
know-
what they're going
yes.
into.
Yes.
Well, and that
Okay.
seems like it's
yeah.
the trend around here, and I honestly, since I've been here, I've heard people hound me to try to, hey, can you do anything to help me out? As far as police trying to get hired. Do you find anything out? And this isn't under you, this is under a previous administration. The minute they got in, within 6 months, all I heard was complaints about what they get paid.
Yeah.
This department's a joke, I don't make enough, I don't make this or that. Like, you knew what you were getting paid, you fought to be here. And now you're here 6 months and all of a sudden
You want more.
you want more. And, you
But I don't
know,
think that's the case with him.
I
He's
don't-
been here
I
for
don't know.
35 years.
Yeah,
He's
no,
not
no, and
gonna-
honestly,
Yeah.
obviously
That's
Tim's
And then
great.
we also have Joey now, so when I don't, we have the SSC, I get it, but now we have Joey. It takes a lot of that off of.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say
I
it takes a
don't-
lot off, it just adds a whole nother separate side to the job, because we never
Joey's
had the
doing
landscape.
things that nobody was doing
Yeah.
before.
So it's not like
Right.
Ed Wilds was doing that, or
Right.
Norris was, none of
But
them were
somebody
doing
should have
that.
been doing that.
Should have been,
Well-
but that's why it's
So-
a whole separate thing, but I
Right.
see what you're saying.
But
But I'm
yeah.
just saying, like, we didn't take a cut off, you know, we thought about that. So what would you have done in that if
I'm sorry, say that again.
we thought about even cutting the SSD and making them more compatible
Well,
because of Joey having that position. So now you want the SSD to be higher than your police chief. I mean, I get it.
SSD in history has always been higher than the police chief. It's the SS, but what you're saying is.
But that doesn't make it right, because that's of how it's always been done. I think if we had, if our
You're right,
SSD
Zane.
right now
Them
was gonna
things have
complain
always been
about
done.
it.
No, no,
That's
no.
the
Good
last
Lord,
thing you
you're
wanna
not-
hear.
But, right, but when you go to work, your boss makes more than you?
Yeah.
Okay, Bob is Tim Roddy's boss.
And
it's gonna be vice versa.
He's also Joe's boss, right?
Correct.
Yes, and he's also,
He's all-
but
Yeah,
he's Guy's
everybody's
boss too.
And guy makes
And
more.
Guy makes more than, so argument I get, but it's not, if we have, he makes more than him.
Sure.
So I get.
But he
what
makes
you're
more than
saying.
them because of the qualification.
And let's
But
put
he's
this
still
in,
his boss.
I understand.
also put it in perspective. Bob, yes, Tim answers to Bob, but Bob does not have to manage all the police department.
No,
You know what I mean? So
I
when
agree.
you talk about a chain of it, you would have someone up here that would be able to manage all the people
here's the,
managing one person.
Here's the truth, at the end of the day, if you could make an
Right.
argument for one person, it probably would be Tim Roddy. And I'm not saying it to him as a person, I'm saying it to the position as well. Because he does have the biggest of all the department's budget, correct?
I mean,
And he also has
out of the general fund.
and he also has the most people underneath him.
Right.
So he does have how many employees, Pat? 20-some?
Including
It
dispatch,
fluctuates, but yeah.
So you got 20-some employees, which,
plus the part-time.
you know,
So-
street department, you have 4 or 5. So I get it, and if you could make an argument for somebody, it is probably that department in that position. Again, I just thought of keeping everybody the same. If everybody else thinks that we should go with the position raise, I'm fine with that as well. Around the horn?
Wait, what did you just say?
If everybody thinks that we should raise the
Which,
police chief, and I mean,
Something
you,
has to say for longevity too.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
honestly, I mean.
usually on longevity, you're depending on the position compiling over that cost of living increase that you've been here for that time. You know what I mean?
so what you
Our
guys said,
Do
police
you
actually-
understand what I'm saying?
Our police, everyone that's in the union receives a longevity check too.
Sure, yeah.
So that's even more,
And again, he has that choice, that he
Right.
is chief.
Correct.
You know, and
but
And there
I think,
also are things that come along with chief, and he's also not out there chasing people down and tackling them either.
Right.
So I mean, different roles do have a different position, you have different things to do.
but I'm sure Tim gets called out for things when
Sure.
we don't have.
he's on call 24
We
hours.
Well,
don't
he
have
don't-
many police
yeah.
officers, so I'm sure Tim has
is Bob
to.
on call 24 hours?
Yes.
So what you were saying before, that Bob really isn't in charge of Tim Roddy anymore?
Sure.
Yeah, he is.
Sure.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but with all those other people underneath him, no, either?
No,
No, he is.
Bob is in charge of Tim. Tim is
I
in charge
understand
of
that.
all the people
That's what I mean,
underneath
but
him.
the other ones still have to feed to him.
Bob is this, I mean, if you read, Bob is the second most powerful man in the
Right.
city.
He's in charge of all the.
Everybody-
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, he's in charge of all the departments.
Correct.
What I'm saying is, it's a pretty good responsibility to come back on him. Even though he doesn't have all the employees or anything else, it's just a job matter
I just
too.
know in the past, we tried to keep the chiefs pretty equal,
Yes.
and it's basically the same. I mean, there's about a $2,000 difference, and that's what it was last year.
Right, and I will say too, and that's where we're still proposing a 3% raise for the fire chief. However, when it comes to department managing those, Roddy has a lot of.
Yeah, but what I'm saying,
He
it's
does.
it's still only about $2,000 difference,
Yeah,
even
it's
from
not a-
last year's
Yeah.
budget. so-
Yes,
Yeah.
it's not we're not asking for a huge increase. We just felt like between Joey's position and Chief Roddy's position, that those two, we would like to bring up. And financially,
I don't understand what we're saying about Joey. You said you're gonna take Joey's out. What did you say? When we first sat down?
We're gonna give him the 4,000, yes, coming
Yeah.
from his.
Oh, you were okay with that?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
100%.
we're okay with that.
With Joey's position, listen, what I was trying to say is with Joey's position, I understood the increase. Because
Oh,
when we
okay.
crafted
I
the position,
misunderstood.
when we crafted the position, we started it low because we didn't know what to anticipate that it would bring in revenue.
Yeah.
We know what it brings in now, and we know actually what an asset it is to the city. So that position over the next so many years is going to have to be brought up again and again until it's at a standard that it should be getting paid, right? I mean, we started it low,
yeah.
you know, knowing that. So it's going to see a couple increases over the next 5 to 10 years, as long as it keeps doing what it does. But again, the rest of them, I just thought we were at a point where it was kind of like everybody's doing pretty good. You just kind of coast on a percentage increase, but that is true. He wouldn't be making more than the SSD had the SSD got a raise when Tim Daly came in. So
And
It's
like I
arguable.
said, it's something that I've talked to Bob about, and Bob feels comfortable with this too. And like I said, we're gonna be renegotiating the contracts, and we would like to give what we can and what we can handle.
sure.
To the department.
Well, no,
No,
to the police,
police union.
Oh, okay.
which they truly need brought
Can you
up.
come in?
Yes,
Sure.
they truly need brought up 100%. So I guess it's just we're gonna start in reverse. So we're gonna start by raising the top in anticipation that we're gonna be raising the other two. Fair enough.
Another question, I mean, is there any need for the fire chief to have any type of secretary at all? Or does somebody do a little bit of his job for him?
I think he
Like
handles
it.
that. I don't know that there's a need for one.
Okay.
we have never really asked him, cause he,
Well,
No other fire chief has ever needed
I-
one,
I
and pretty much
understand.
Michelle Ray handles all of his stuff for him anyway, but I'm gonna leave that there.
Okay. Well,
And I think even designing
and I
the
explained
station-
that to him too, because actually what you told me last night about that building, he goes, when you told me to give it to Michelle about that. But he just mentioned to me something about,
I don't think there's enough. Whereas the police chief, we have reports every day, we're calls constantly. Not that the fire doesn't have calls all the time, because they do, but I don't think for a secretary, there's enough to justify another position.
okay,
Michelle does handle anything that he needs.
Okay.
I can tell you that.
that's fine. I'm doing this at a point where I'm the chairman, he asked me a question, I just want to bring it up
Why
and
didn't
get
he
an
ask
answer.
us that?
He could have, but
We have budget meetings,
we've had discussions
where-
about a few things, that's all.
but anything like that, if that was never even brought up to us. So if that was something we needed to look at, even if somebody part-time,
Well, it wasn't really him, but, you know, it was him, and we were just talking about the whole situation and everything else, that's what he just brought up to me, I'm like, I'll bring it up, that's all I can do for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And obviously, maybe it should have been brought up between amongst
in the
yourselves.
budget meetings.
But we'll leave it at that. All right.
But after having the new fire station, if it's something that he feels is necessary, we can definitely revisit that for next year.
Okay. Absolutely. So, thank you.
Alright, who got, what else? You had a couple. Parks and Rec.
Yeah,
what
that's my
was
one,
that?
Parks and Rec, under. Hold on, let me find it.
Parks and Rec.
Park and playground,
That's
sorry,
right.
yeah. The materials and supplies wasn't in there for 2022. It was on like the back page, I think.
It's right here.
So I just wanted to make sure that's
Yes.
the same.
Materials and supplies, it looks like they're under the meeting room now. There's 4,000 under the meeting room.
So this was always a category that was built into the system, but I failed to budget for it before. So Bob would go in and buy stuff and he would, you know, pick the category, but I just simply made the mistake of leaving the category out when we passed the budget, so we had to like maneuver the stuff to put it in the other areas. So it's not necessarily, if you notice, the total isn't,
Yeah.
it was just where it's distributed.
So it just got absorbed into other areas,
Yeah,
other line
It
items,
was simply
correct?
just when I did the budget, I typographical just missed it, putting it in there, so.
But the
He's
dollar
had
amount
it
is the same.
in my
He gets more this year, but yeah.
system, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I,
So it's
failed to
accounted
budget
for,
for it.
there's just not a line item for it, correct?
there wasn't, so I
Okay.
just added it.
Okay, yeah, I talked to Bob, but we, went over the budget with him, and he was fine with everything.
It's just a way for him to, there's certain things you wanna categorize when you're trying to plan your year, how, and if things go up, it's easier to, figure out, how to budget and where to take it from, so.
One question though, if, say one of the furnaces were to go in the building, is that something that there would be money to pull from to cover an expense like that? I mean, that would.
I mean, this is a special revenue fund, and we can only budget the amount of revenue that we carried over, plus what we could substantiate that is coming in, and that's every special revenue fund. So, to that end, there's a finite amount of money, like this is it. So if something were to happen and it was above and beyond what we had, we'd have to figure something out.
Okay.
Like, the general fund wanted to say, we'll cover it and we'll transfer that money, we'd have to come up with a creative solution.
Okay.
But for this particular thing, I can't add any more money to it. This is, all this money is from all the rentals.
Okay.
So it just kinda is what it is, and we had a difficult year because we got a bunch and then we had a refund with the COVID.
Right.
So we're kinda playing catch up still. So I would say the fund used to have like $30,000 a year is what we would have to run that fund. But we just had a tough year with some instances of things breaking, and this will change actually because of the insurance claim. So sometimes the insurance company will pay direct, and sometimes they'll give us the money and we pay, and when we did the budget, I wasn't sure what way they were going to go with paying the claim that happened in January, but actually, like, yesterday I got a check from them. So we'll have to deposit the money and pay it out, so when we amend the budget, I'll have to include that, but we'll have a receipt and expenditures. So it will go up, but it's no money we had to go out and get or anything, it's from the insurance claim.
Okay.
And hopefully,
We got what
stuff's
else?
new there, so hopefully last.
No?
Well, obviously, I have a couple more questions.
Go ahead.
The expenses and everything else that you have
Okay.
for the fire department, you know, he thinks that he's down like $16,000 for a lot of the things that he was appropriated last year. And
Well,
he just
he-
wanted maybe an answer. Like I said, maybe-
$16,000 was put into Northside Station, literally exactly $16,000 to fix it up.
Okay.
We won't be fixing that up this year, so you don't need that money again.
And then he did bring up maybe something about, I'm sure he talked to you about a side-by-side maybe getting for the city. But we-
Yes,
I-
here's
but I-
where we're at
But
with
I think
that
we can
though.
appropriate that at the end of the year, which
Yes.
after we're done with it.
And
everything
right
else.
now, a lot of our ARPA funds are being used for a new fire truck.
Absolutely.
And the excess for the station. So,
Ninth man.
huh?
Ninth
Got the
man.
ninth man.
The ninth man. A
Right.
lot of the things that they
New
wanted
equipment.
in years,
They
they
got.
got, and they're getting, and a lot of it's being allocated just to the fire department and no one else. So while, yes, there's other things that we have to do as far as widening some of the paths that we're working on with Mill Creek, getting everything set down by the dam and to be able to use those there. So while I understand that is a want and a need, there
It's a
are other,
Other important things we have to do with the city.
yes, and we've, they got a lot the
They
last
did.
couple of years, not saying that it's not needed,
Right,
but
so it could be.
We do
used
have a
as-
whole city do it. And I guess my point is to that, a lot of the things that I just said, we can't do everything in one budget, right?
right.
We have to spread this out over years, and a lot of what they're asking for with that, Ricky had spoke to about the boat launch, correct, and the dam removal, and them
Yeah.
plowing their parking lot.
Yeah, so next year, will it be a
cor-
need? Will it go from a
correct.
want to a need after all of these
Right.
things have been completed?
But to buy it
Yeah.
on this year's budget, when the fire station isn't gonna be
Isn't gonna be
done,
completed.
and the dam isn't gonna be removed for quite a while, it
We
seems
can
like
we can
that's
allocate it for next year.
next year, yeah.
Okay,
So
that's
it's
fine.
not a no, it's just that it's
Not yet.
still in that category between, it's not,
And we also have to keep in mind that once they get into the station,
they're gonna need
there's
stuff.
gonna
Lot of
be
stuff.
so many items that aren't included in,
Sure.
that we're gonna need to figure out how to fund.
Where to buy it, how to buy it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So the priority list may shift and some other stuff may come to the forefront that we're not thinking of at this moment because they're not in there yet to see what is gonna be like a need.
Well, I appreciate the answers, I just wanna make it clear to myself and him.
I would say it's definitely something that seems like it could be usable in the future, once those two
Yes.
things are done,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
again, to do it on this
This year, there's
budget.
too much going on, not
Yeah.
being, station not being built, and materials going into the station, what they're gonna need.
When I
We
brought up
already have
too,
one change order,
and I brought up too, you may want
Hey,
to,
Doug, put a shovel on the ground, we got a change order.
so,
UTVs, the depreciation is hard, so it's really easy to get one that's 2-3 years old, substantially cheaper.
and is also something that KO is looking to see if we can get a small grant.
Small grant for it.
Now, it's not on the top of the priorities list, like some of the things for wastewater, but it is on that list of things that they're trying to fund. So,
Once everything's done, and taken care of, I can bring this out and maybe we can use it for fire again.
Fair enough.
There, towards the end of the year. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
I have one more question. So for like materials and supplies, like I noticed like Hagen stayed the same, and then like under cats, it went up $1,500, $1,800, whatever it was. Is that for like things like printers or
My
like?
table's broken. And you could walk into my office right now, the conference table, we've been to a couple places, and I'm just not comfortable with some of the cost. So we're trying to get a table made. The table is bowing, we've fixed it a million times. The sides of it, I had a gentleman snag his suit on because it's coming off. So, a table, that's what that is. and we're trying to
It's kind
repurpose
of
a
what
lot
we
of.
thought.
Yeah, I said it was, there was an expense somewhere, maybe it was a copier, maybe it was,
And you
you
can,
know.
if you go in my office right now, you can see the bow, and you can see where we put tape on the edges.
Like mine.
Like that one.
Like this one right there.
That one's- we got a couple more years out of that.
I think
We
they're
don't-
like that in the courtroom.
And we fixed it, we keep fixing it, and it's just, it's not, it's beyond fixing.
I'm an extremely prudent person when it comes to funds, so that's fine. We got 4 or 5 more years out of that table.
And we actually, we found out Bob's desk, we moved Joey's desk, and we found out Bob's desk was a table, was a desk, just the bottom where somebody put the top of the table on.
If it wasn't fastened or not, they were just sitting on there.
So we've been using some old stuff, and I know my
Alright.
desk right now is
Two
the
but
desk
liquid
that
nails, it'll
may or
be
may
fine.
not
Oh, okay,
have
small
back in the
one.
day.
Joe
Which is
sold
still a
it.
good desk, so we're still using it, but the
we-
table is,
It's private session, or can I come in?
No, you can sit, correct?
Okay.
Yeah. Come on, Mr.
Cool.
Lyle. Good to see you.
Yeah.
We got 3 more minutes under this budget meeting if anybody has anything else for Ken. Or just.
and you guys know, if you have any questions, even going along, even if it's not just today,
To be honest, there wasn't a lot on here that seemed out of the ordinary, you know, it was pretty straightforward.
It's a proposed budget, that's how we have our.
Yeah,
I was gonna
right.
say, as long as you went off the right budget this year.
Listen, that was Megan's fault. She gave me the wrong one.
Last year, when they were comparing it to the,
I didn't do that.
Thanks a lot. Nothing's called this session, so we just have
So
3
are you
minutes.
saying that you don't want council, does Megan need to change the council's amount?
Yes, we're all good with that, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, council will forego their raise.
Do you have time to pull it up and change it?
Well,
It's gonna change
that
all
would
the
be on
amounts though, right?
salaries, correct, or no?
I mean, it's up to you, but you could if you want to change this total.
If you have
or-
time, then yes,
Just leave
that's
it.
fine with me.
I have to pull it up in your workshop, Excel, right?
That I sent to you?
Yeah.
can you just
What-
leave it and change it in the,
Yeah, that's up to them. I
Well,
don't
the
know how
ordinance
they
wouldn't
want to
change
pass
that.
it.
Well, we could change it under the
Or,
ordinance.
yeah,
well, it would just stay the same.
Yeah, it
right?
would stay
The
the
ordinance
same.
would just
Yeah.
stay the same.
It's-
Well,
That's up
this
to
is
you.
the-
That was just the only
Well,
one that
if
you
we,
guys
if we pass this the
verbally
way it
said
is,
you wanted
the new
different.
ordinance will have the 3% raise in it.
No.
oh, it'll be built in.
It's gonna be built in.
It's gonna be built into our line item category,
Well,
correct?
Right, you could
But
just
we
not
can just,
spend it
yeah, or we can move it
Yeah.
to
later.
Oh,
contingent
okay.
or something like that, correct, Chrissy?
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to pass a whole new budget.
We're gonna have to amend the budget at
Wait,
some
yeah, for
point,
sure.
so, but we're all in agreement that we're not gonna accept any type of
Right.
increase. Fair enough.
Put it in a line item.
But we also thought this too, that under elected officials, a lot of you guys, you and Chrissy, this is your full-time job. This is actually how you feed your family and everything. For us, this is, all of us, this isn't our current only employment. This is more of a labor of love.
This is for fun.
This is
Yes.
so he can get on TV.
Yes,
that's all.
this is so I get those interviews with Stan Bowden. So, we don't feel we
So
should.
there's nothing that you need to change before you take it out. You're good. Okay.
Well, thank you guys for,
No, I mean, all full-time employees got one. You guys are full-time employees and we're not.
this whole,
Yeah, we're-
process is very stressful, and she takes a lot of pride in getting this ready for you.
Not
So-
really.
So we'll need a new agenda.
It's in the packet.
But yeah, like you
Yeah.
guys were here
You guys-
and I
are you
literally,
guys done
you
with
started the
budget workshop?
meeting 3 minutes in and I was literally
Are you
playing
guys
this thing.
closing it?
Yeah,
I was like, to the wire.
Are we closing the budget workshop?